Hi, in this video I'm going to show you a little bit about creating pivot tables in Excel. Pivot tables are a great tool to quickly analyze your data and as the name implies, you can easily pivot from looking at your data one way and then another. So to start with here, I have some data and that's one of the key things about creating a pivot table in Excel. Your data has to be set up essentially as a database, which means we need column headings, and that would be the name of each column, and then of course the data needs to be in a simple single row. So in this case I just have the results of a survey, so to speak, and we have some initials, first initial, last name, the gender that they reported, their hourly pay, the city, and the state in which they live. And so perhaps I want to do some analysis about comparing maybe the average pay from Idaho to whatever other cities happen to be in here, and there's a few other states and cities in here as well. So to start with, to create a pivot table, I'm going to make sure that I'm in the data somewhere. I don't want to start over outside the data, so once I'm in the data, I can just go right into the Insert ribbon, and I can just click Pivot Table, and it's pretty much that quick and easy to start the pivot table creation process. And so now I have the Create Pivot Table dialog box, and Excel is asking me here, what data do I want to analyze with a pivot table? And of course in this case, since I had this set up as a database, it defaulted to the entire database range, including the field headings, which is crucial for creating a pivot table. It also asks me where I want the result of this pivot table to be placed, and I could put it in this existing worksheet, maybe put it over to the right of the data if I wanted to, but in this case I want to go ahead and leave it in a new worksheet so that I can work with the entire worksheet as the pivot table. So once I've done that, really I've done nothing here other than just clicked Insert Pivot Table. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And now Excel has created a new worksheet, and this worksheet is a pivot table worksheet. Over on the right here, we see the fields. And again, that's the reason that we have to have those fields identified. And these are the fields that I can analyze by. Of course, in order to do numeric analysis, I'm going to have some sort of a numeric field. In this case, I have ID, and I also have pay. The ID is just a simple ID for each individual that reported on this survey. That would be great for counting. But if I want to do some analysis like summing and averaging, the pay would be the field that I want to work with. So let's just make this very, very simple to begin with. Let's just say that I'm interested in the average pay by the state in these records. Well, I'm just going to go ahead and turn on the state. Now, as soon as I turned on the state, Excel automatically created a row for each state. It summarized it for me. If I put it over in the column, I could do that if I wanted to by just dragging, but in this case, I'm going to go ahead and go with the Excel default and have a row for each state in this data. Now I want to do some analysis based on pay, so I'm going to go ahead and click on the pay field. Just click that little checkbox. Excel understood that this was a value, and so it automatically moved the pay into the value area here. Now I look at the actual pivot table, and I see that what it did for me, it defaulted to sum. So this isn't very useful for me, but it just tells me of all the individuals that reported in Idaho, Nevada, that is the sum of their hourly pay, which again means nothing to me. I am interested in the average. So I can very quickly and easily change this to compute the average of the pay by just double-clicking here. And as soon as I do, I get a Value Fields Setting dialog box. Here we have some very basic statistical functions. I could count, I could get the highest, I could get the lowest. In this case, though, I'm very interested in the average. So I'm going to turn on the average. Now, I could be happy at this point, but since these are dollar amounts, I'm going to go ahead and tell Excel to display the pivot table averages as currency. So I'll click this little number format button, and I'm going to choose currency. And since we are dealing with dollars and cents, I'm going to go ahead and leave the decimal places at 2. I'll click OK. I'll click OK again. And now I have the average pay for each state. And so I can see in this case that they're pretty similar. It looks like Nevada is fairly low and Washington is fairly low. Now let's assume I would like some additional analysis here. Let's assume that I would also like the high the high reported in each of these states. Well, to do that, I'm going to go ahead and click on Pay again. I'm going to drag it down a second time. And so now I have a second column for pay. Once again, Excel defaulted to sum of pay. I'm going to change that in this case to the max. I'll also change the number format to currency, 2 decimal places, and I'll click OK, and OK again. And so I can see that the highest pay, at least according to this survey, per hour was reported by an individual that lives in Idaho. Now, let's assume that as I look at the data, maybe there are not too many individuals that have reported from Nevada, and maybe I'm thinking that in this case, Nevada is skewing my data just a little bit. So if that's what I would decide to do, I can actually turn off Nevada or deselect them from the list. So I'll click the little filter tool here on row labels, and I'll just turn off Nevada. Click OK, and now I have all the data, but without Nevada in the list. If I change my mind, I want Nevada again, I just go back to the filter tool, go ahead and click on Select All, click OK, and now we're back to where we started. Now, I could also put in some other summarization here. Let's assume in this case I'm also interested in gender, the reported gender. I go ahead and add gender, and now it gives me Idaho, Nevada, Oregon, and the average for each of the genders. And then I have the total average for each, and then a grand total. Now, in this case, the grand total really isn't doing anything for me. Let's just say I want to get rid of it. Well, in that case, I can actually right-click on somewhere in the pivot table, and I can click on Pivot Table Options from the shortcut menu that appears. After I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and click on Totals and Filters, and I'm going to turn off both of these grand totals. I click OK, and now I don't have the grand total. I'm just interested just in the individual states and genders that I see here. If I change my mind, of course, I can right-click on it again, go back to Pivot Table Options, and turn them back on if that's what I want to do. Okay, just to keep this video short, I'm just going to show you one other thing here. I'm going to turn off the gender in this case just to make it simple. You just click the little checkbox on the field in the pivot table fields, and gender is no longer on the pivot table. One of the kind of an easy, cool thing that you can do with pivot tables is insert a slicer. And so I'm going to go ahead and go to the pivot table Analyze here, the tab up there, and I'm going to go ahead and click on Insert Slicer. And now it says, what field do you want to slice by? And this is really just a quick and easy visual filter. I'm interested in state in this case because that's the only field I have on here to filter by at this point. And I click OK. And I'm going to click away from it, and now I have a slicer, and I can move that wherever I want just by clicking and dragging on the edge. Let's assume in this case that I'm only interested in Oregon. Well, I just click on Oregon on the slicer, and now I just have the Oregon. If I want Nevada or Idaho, if I want multiple states, I can use the Control key, and I can select different states. I also have a filter here, and if I click on that filter, it goes back to Select All. And if you decide you don't want a filter, a slicer, all you have to do is just click on it and hit the Delete key. Now notice that when I'm outside the pivot table, I don't see the pivot table fields and the options for adding additional fields. In order to do that, you need to stay within the pivot table. Now this is just a quick, brief introduction to pivot tables. There is a lot more that you can do with pivot tables, but we'll just start with this. The data file that I'm using here is actually available on my website, luthermaddy.com, and if you go to Data and Media Files, you can download the pay survey and create this and follow along. All right, thank you very much. Just watch out for the next video, and we'll see you next time.